Okay, so welcome back to Disc Golf Over 40. Today, I'm excited to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the context behind my max distance throws. Over the last 30 videos, I've shared about max distance quite a few times, and several times I've had viewers ask me, what is your arm speed? Wanting to know what arm speed results in what distances with what discs. So today I'm going to share with you two DIY methods. One's kind of an engineering overkill that I actually wasn't that happy with. And the second is a great, simpler way that you can go about measuring your arm speed using your phone camera, ideally on a tripod with the right kind of background behind you during a throw. I'll show you how to set that up and how to get your arm speed nailed down. This can help provide you with a metric to track your progress over time. If you measure your arm speed, if it changes, it can also help you understand how you compare to other throwers, and it can help you with disc selection given that information. So let's get into it. I'm looking forward to it. All right, so over the last several videos, I've typically ended up throwing this disc the farthest, the Neutron Trail. And my downhill throw, a good throw down my hill in the backyard is about 420 feet. And a good throw on flat ground these days is about 330 feet with this disc. Or with other discs, like the Vision Trail that I'm still in the middle of proving out and testing. But what velocity, what is my arm speed that results in those distances? So, couple ways to measure arm speed. I said I'll share two with you. First, though, if you want to spend money, you can spend $300 and buy a TechDisc, and you probably need to buy a net to throw into as well. I have not done this. I don't have a TechDisc, but I do like what I've seen from that product, and I like their software online that simulates throws. And I will get into that more in the future. But that's an expensive way to do it. Is there a way to do it with stuff you already have? Now, I've gone about this in two different ways. Both involve just filming with an iPhone. So the first method seemed really convenient because all I had to do was analyze the throw footage I'd already collected, with camera behind me, throwing away from the camera, and looking at how the size of that disc changes as it moves away from the camera. So I had to, calibrate it, measure known distances, number of pixels across the diameter of the disc, and then I had to go in frame by frame and click the edges of the disc to count pixels and convert that into a distance, and then plot that distance versus time, and then fit to it and do all this stuff to end up with a velocity estimate from this fit. That velocity estimate ended up being kind of low and having a pretty high uncertainty. So, not happy with it. In fact, during this video, this was going to be the way I shared velocity. But I started looking outside, thinking this through a little differently. And I saw my barn out in the backyard, noticed its regularly spaced vertical ridges on the siding, and decided, hey, wait a minute, I really should just use that for a more direct velocity measurement. So here's what I did for the better way. This is the way you should do it if you want to try this. So I set up the camera about 80 feet away, zoomed in with its 5x zoom lens. This is my iPhone, once again, and made sure I was pretty much straight on at the center of the barn. So what I do, I just threw perpendicular to the direction that camera was looking, off into the distance. We weren't looking at where the throw went, we were just looking at how many frames does it take to cross how many of these vertical lines. That's it. Very straightforward. So there's a simple formula to get this into miles per hour. I've got it here on the screen. We take our inches traveled divided by 12 to get feet. Then we multiply that by the frame rate. So I was using 60 frames per second. And then we multiply that by 0.6818, which converts it from feet per second to miles per hour. And we divide that by the number of frames, okay? This ends up with the velocity measured as we want. So the vertical ridges in this barn are 9 inches apart exactly, as you can see here in the footage. So I counted how many of those vertical ridges we crossed. And for this one, we ended up with basically 3 of the vertical ridges fully passed for 27 inches, and then an additional 6 inches at the end. And that all happened within 2 frames at 60 hertz, 60 frames a second. If we plug those numbers in, you can see here it's 56.2 miles per hour. So let's just say 56 miles per hour. I did this on several throws for me. I also did it on a few throws for my dad and my daughter Kate. And I ended up calculating the velocity we each threw. And it was just kind of standard throws. I wasn't trying to go easy on it. In fact, one of my throws, I did actually do my easy one-step throw like I had done in most of my last video, and that was around 50 or 51 miles per hour. My dad's throw speed was around 50 miles per hour. My daughter's was around 47. As you can see in the plot here, it gives you some error bars on me basically saying, you know, this is approximately the 1 standard deviation error bar on the data that I collected. Assuming I'm not perfect at counting inches on these backgrounds, right? But I feel like that uncertainty level is acceptable, and it gives you a really good idea of how fast I'm throwing the disc, okay? I loved seeing this. My other method kept resulting in weird low numbers like 44 plus or minus 15 or something like that. Not useful, okay? You can't really judge anything based on that. You can't trust it with that huge spread, you know? So I think this way is absolutely useful and awesome. If you want to know your arm speed, this is the way to do it. All right, so I invite you, if you're curious about your arm speed, to find a regular background like this siding on this barn that gives you a way to measure horizontal distance. Now, if the disc goes at an angle, you've got to think about it a little more and correct for that. Do the Pythagorean theorem or whatever, which I actually had to do with my dad's throws because they were heading upward a little bit. But I encourage you to try it out, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And the simple formula I've provided here kind of makes the math a little easier. You just plug in the numbers where they go, and the trick is being able to measure those inches traveled. That's the whole thing. How many frames did I go? How many inches? And you'll know it, okay? All right, so how do we use this knowledge of our arm speed? Well, again, we can track our progress if we do it again over time. We can use it as context behind how far our disc goes. We can also use it to help us in disc selection. That gets a little more tricky. In a future video, I am going to share with you how to make use of TechDisc's simulation software to knowing your arm speed, plug in some numbers, and see how far you're expected to be able to throw any disc with any numbers, okay? Pretty cool. It can help you have an idea what disc and what type of tweaks to the way you throw it, like release angles and so forth, can get the max distance out of that disc with your arm speed. So looking forward to sharing that with you, and I think you might find it useful and fun as well. So if you guys have any questions about this arm speed measurement or have any comments about how useful it is to know your arm speed and how it might benefit you, please share. And I'd be happy to discuss as much as you're interested. Anyway, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.